This is the first set of notes for World War I, the Great War. It was called the Great War for a long time. Remember, you can stop and pause the video at any time that you need to if you miss something. Make sure to have the notes from class or download them from Blackboard. So World War I was called the Great War for a long time because everybody thought that it was such a big war that everybody thought it was going to end wars forever. Then it turns out it didn't, and World War II happens, and then everybody realizes, oh, World War II was 5 times bigger than World War I, so we call this World War I. But back then they knew it as the Great War. So what happens? Before World War I, Europe looked like this. It had the United Kingdom, or what we sometimes call England or Great Britain, Spain, France, Germany, the Empire of Austria-Hungary, United Italy, and Russia were the big powerhouses in Europe. Now, Greece had first gotten their independence from the Ottoman Empire, and then pretty soon after that, Montenegro, Albania, Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, and the Ottomans broke off. This is not on your notes, this is just background information for you. So this area broke off in the late 1800s, early 1900s, during our waves of nationalism that we saw, how nationalism united Italy and Germany, and also caused rebellions in places. So they broke off of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire. But pretty much Europe is ruled by monarchies. France is going to be a republic at this time. The United Kingdom is a constitutional monarchy. Italy and Germany are monarchies. Austria-Hungary is a monarchy. Russia is a monarchy. So that's kind of what Europe looks like during this time period. This area down here is going to be called the Balkans. So go ahead and I'm going to circle it using a shape, but go ahead and just take a minute to circle this area on your map. I'm going to empty it so that way you can see what's in the middle and color it red. That area is known as the Balkans, and the Balkans are going to be very important for our story of World War I. So this is notes part 1, the war begins. We'll have a separate video for part 2, part 3, and part 4. So there are 4 main causes of what actually leads to the war, and you can remember them by the acronym MAIN. Okay, so the first one's going to be militarism, the building up of the army and gaining power. So all of the different empires in Europe that we just saw on the map are gaining power and building up their armies and recruiting more men and building bigger and bigger guns. Like you can see the gun in the picture here. This is called a howitzer. It's set on railroad tracks. It's one of the first forms of artillery after a cannon. The barrel, men are sitting up on the barrel so you can see how big it is. It would shoot about 1 to 2 miles in distance, and it would have such a big recoil that it would slide an entire football field length down the railroad track. So we're getting big guns, and so people want to really prove that they're strong and that they have the better army. We're also getting things like machine guns and poison gas and tanks. So people want to prove this. The second cause is going to be alliances, or the agreements made between 2 or more countries for protection. So during the late 1800s, early 1900s, Europe is going to be split into essentially 2 camps. They're going to be forming some alliances, and you can see based on the colors here which side, who takes which side. So the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians and the Ottomans kind of end up taking each other's sides and supporting each other, whereas the French, the Russians, and Great Britain kind of end up taking their side and become known as the Allies and support each other. Now, Great Britain, Russia, and Germany actually are all related. Their monarchies, or their kings, are all related through Queen Victoria. But, you know, families sometimes get into arguments, so it doesn't really matter that much. But think of an alliance as agreement to protect. If someone comes up and punches your best friend, you're going to react and probably punch back. So this is, you can see, let me delete this in the background so that way you don't have to see it. This is a map, or kind of just a picture that shows the different alliances and how they had provided aid for different areas. Russia, France, and Britain are going to be the Triple Entente alliance formed in 1894 and between 1904 and 1907. And then the Triple Alliance is going to be Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Germany. They're also going to bring in the Ottomans in 1914 as the war starts. And so these are the 2 camps setting up in Europe. Now, reason number 3 is going to be imperialism, the idea of dominating a region for trade, land, expansion of raw materials, and creating colonies. Now, imperialism is going to be a cause of the war because people are competing for colonies, and the idea is that more colonies means my empire is bigger and my empire is stronger, just like we saw with the last set of, the last unit of all about imperialism. And so the idea is that if I want my empire to become bigger, like let's say I'm the Germans and I want my empire to become bigger around the world, and I'm looking at the British Empire and saying they have a really big empire, I might start a little war with Britain, thinking that if I have a bigger army, militarism, I'm going to win. Nationalism, I have a better country, therefore I'm going to win. Then if I win the war, I can take Britain's colonies and increase the size and power of my empire. And so this is another reason that they're all going to go to war. And then, of course, the fourth is nationalism, or pride in your country. They're all kind of standing there saying, my country is better than your country, and I'm going to prove it through militarism. And so all of these things are interrelated, these four main causes, but at the same time, they're also all big causes. So we have these four causes, underlying causes of World War I. What I want you to think about is which of these four is the most important cause of World War I? Which of these is the biggest reason that the war happened and that it grew to such a big scale, grew to a global scale? What I want you to do is make a star next to one of them in your notes. Okay, militarism, alliances, imperialism, or nationalism. And in class we talked about which one, and we went around and shared what we thought, and there's no wrong answer. Okay, there are different reasons why each would be the right answer. But this is something that it's gonna lead us into our DBQ for this unit. So we have these four main causes of World War I, but in order for the dynamite to blow up and the war to actually start, we need to have a spark. And so our spark is going to be the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. He was the heir to the Austrian throne, and he is shot by a Serbian nationalist in the town of Sarajevo, which is in Austria, but it was an area where there were a lot of Serbians that were living and they wanted independence. So this happens in the region called the Balkans, which we already know is right here in that little red circle. And so this area is going to explode and it's going to pull the rest of Europe in. In class, if you download the PowerPoint, you can click on Where Are the Balkans link and watch the short video on the Balkans. It's only about 30 seconds of the video, and then it goes on to other things that you don't need to know about. Or if you want to know about them, go watch the rest of it. But this is the short-term cause. This is the spark. Just like we had the storming of the Bastille as the spark of the French Revolution. So Austria-Hungary then sends the Serbians an ultimatum saying, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, we will declare war in response to the killing of the Archduke. And Serbia says, yeah, we'll do X and Y, but we're not so sure about Z, and it's too late by the time they return those. Austria-Hungary has already declared war on Serbia. And when that happens, within 1 week of Austria-Hungary declaring war on Serbia, most of Europe gets pulled into the war. And if you click on this YouTube link down here, it'll take you to a video from Horrible Histories about this cause of the war and how specifically Great Britain gets involved, but it tells you exactly how everybody else gets involved. So, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Serbia and Russia are friends. Therefore, Russia comes in to help out Serbia. And if Russia comes in to help out Serbia and Austria-Hungary is attacking Serbia, then Germany is going to come in to help out their best friend Austria-Hungary, and that means that Germany is now involved, which means that Germany is going to have to deal with Russia. But if Germany deals with Russia on one side, that leaves Germany open, undefended in the rear, because they move their entire army over to deal with Russia, which means that Russia's friend France might have to get involved. So Germany has to declare war on Russia and France at the same time, which means that in order to declare war on France, Germany and France don't get along at this time. France lost some territories during the Franco-Prussian War to Germany when Germany was uniting. They're not too happy with each other. Then Germany has to run through Belgium, the tiny little green area here where my cursor is, in order to get to France. When they run through Belgium, Belgium's friend Great Britain decides to get involved, and pretty soon you have the entire continent at war. So you have Serbia and Austria getting involved and then bringing in Russia, then bringing in Germany, then bringing in France, and finally bringing in Great Britain at the end. So, the whole continent is going to explode. But first, to finish out this set of notes, what are the two sides? Okay, the Triple Alliance was the first side. This is on the bottom left-hand side of your notes packet, made up of Austria-Hungary, Italy, and Germany. And this was all set up before 1914. They changed they kind of become called something different. In 1914, they become called the Central Powers, when Austria-Hungary, Germany are joined by the Ottoman Empire and Bulgaria. Italy kind of backs out and says, oh, we're going to take this out. We're going to become neutral, and then Italy ends up actually joining on the Allied side. for the war. So Austria-Hungary, Germany, Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria, and we know them as the Central Powers. On the other side, fighting against them, are the Triple Entente, okay, which formed before 1914, made up of Great Britain, France, and Russia. And then once the war starts in 1914, they become the Allied powers. Great Britain, France, and Russia are joined by Italy. They're also in 1917, 3 years after the war starts, joined by the United States. We'll talk about why the United States gets involved later in this unit. They're also going to be joined by Japan, making it a truly global war, as well as the United States. It's no longer just a European war. And then, of course, Serbia, who started it all, which you see down here kind of on the picture. So these are our two sides. But in 1914, where's the United States? What are they up to? Well, the United States is going to remain neutral. Okay, they're going to stay out of it. They're going to say, we're going to trade with everybody. Don't worry, we're just going to be happy to make more than enough money off of you. Keep things neutral. And everybody else says, okay, the U.S. is staying out of it, not a big deal. U.S. is kind of a weakling little country at this time. That's what all of the Europeans think, at least. And it looks like the U.S. is going to stay neutral, but there are going to be some things that end up dragging them into the war that we'll look at later on in this unit. Now, the last thing for this unit, or for this part of the notes, is going to be the leaders of each side. The Central Powers are going to be led by Germany's Kaiser Wilhelm I. We've talked about him from the unification of Germany. Austria is going to be led by the Emperor Franz Joseph, and the Ottomans are going to be led by Mehmed V. You can see their pictures down here. Wilhelm, Franz Joseph, and Mehmed in the middle. On the Allied side, Great Britain is led by their Prime Minister, David Lloyd George. Russia is led by Tsar Nicholas II, but not for long. We'll see him overthrown in a couple years, pulling the Russians out of the war with the Bolshevik Revolution. We'll talk about that. And then later on coming in is going to be Woodrow Wilson, whose picture you see here, leading the United States as our president. Now, in class, we also went through and looked at the events that started World War I, and how we have the assassination of the Archduke. We put everything onto a timeline, we organize them, then put them onto a timeline. Make sure you do that first. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. They gave them a month to accept their ultimatum. Russia then mobilizes, which means they kind of get all of their army ready at the edge of their country on their borders, so that way they can, jump into the war. So then Germany has to declare war at Russia, which means they have to also declare war on France the next day, which means that Germany invades Belgium, which means that Great Britain then declares war on Germany to protect Belgium. Austria-Hungary then decides to declare war on Russia to protect their friend Germany, and then France and Great Britain decide to declare war on Austria-Hungary, bringing the entire European continent pretty much into the war. So that is part 1. There'll be another video for part 2. Check back in a minute.